What's up guys, Sir27 here, and welcome back to another video. This video is Hollow Knight Lure Explained. But before we get into that, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. That disclaimer is that this video has many spoilers for Hollow Knight gameplay as well as Hollow Knight endings. And all music in this video as well as the entire Hollow Knight game is owned by Team Cherry. So, Hollow Knight is a great Metroidvania game about bugs. But don't start thinking it's a bad game, because it's not. For starters, Hollow Knight takes place in a place known as Hollow Nest. Now let me get into the first main character in Hollow Knight, which is the Pale King. The Pale King is a worm that came to Hollow Nest from lands far away. When he came here, he kind of not really died. But when he did die, he kind of emerged out of himself in a new body. So he kind of like transformed into like a smaller bug that resembled more of the other bugs living around the area. But when he came to Hollow Knight, there were already bugs living there, like the mushrooms, the moths, the spiders, the bees, the mantis people, and scaredy bugs hiding in bushes, each with their own cultures and customs, which had caused them to have different interactions with the Pale King. For example, the mantis made a deal with him, the bees sealed the hive from the outside to prevent entry, and the mushrooms went along with him. The Moth Tribe were born from the second main character, a higher being known as the Radiance. The Radiance was kind of like a light that the moths basked in, and now there were three main substances in Hollow Knight, which are Essence, Soul, and Void. The Radiance was made of Essence, which is the remains of dreams and wishes. And we will get back to the other two later. So the Radiance, while made of it, she is not the only higher being that gives off radiance. Un has green particles, the Pale King has white particles, and Grim gives off red particles. However, the Radiance appears to be the main god in terms of dreams. Now let's get back to the Moth Tribes. The Moths basically turned their backs on the Radiance in order to worship the new light which had appeared, the Pale King's light. With her tribe forsaking her, the Radiance became a forgotten memory, a remnant of the past which I will totally not come back to later. And so, the Pale King's kingdom was established. Bugs and Hollow Knight had their instincts changed, and they were given higher thought. The Pale King most likely did this because he wanted to be worshipped. The citizens of Hollow Knight believed that the Pale King created the world and everything in it, and therefore they worshipped him. But when the Pale King came to power, a lot of things were shunned and disliked, such as lifeblood, which was a blue liquidy substance which made a bug who drank it feel refreshed. But the use of lifeblood was seen as a taboo, and the people that used it were shunned. The use of soul for combat was also shunned. Soul is another one of the main substances in Hollow Knight. It is a sort of life force that animates the bodies of living creature. Although some people can use soul of others to conjure powerful spirits and spells and abilities, most people did not use this ability. However, the Pale King did not rule alone. There was another higher being in the mix, a being known as the White Lady. Although we don't know much about the White Lady, we do know she likes to breed, like a lot. But let's move away from that now and try not to come back here later. Over time, the Pale King's kingdom industrialized. Now, these industrializations happened in all across the kingdom, but a few specific ones we're gonna point out, like the one at Crystal Peak. At Crystal Peak, there are crystals that are pinkish purple that are very cool looking, and they grow very rapidly on the walls, the ceilings, and even some bugs' shells. These crystals were considered valuable, which led to mass minings of them. We don't really see them anywhere else, but the crystals are said to contain a sort of magical energy, and they are said to sing it if you listen very carefully. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna turn around. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna stop that now. In terms of military, Helena's first line of defense was a group simply known as the Five Great Knights. The Five Great Knights were Ulgrim, Hagnol, Zemir, Dryia, and Isma. And with this, the Pale King had created a kingdom that ran by itself, lived by itself, and protected itself. But in his quest to conquer all of Halnest, he had made an enemy long forgotten, an enemy that was about to be remembered. I may have mentioned earlier that the moths forgot the Radiance, but that isn't 100% true. Memories of her still lingered, which kept the Radiance alive. Some of those important memories were the statue of her at Crystal Peak, which was built to keep her memory alive, obviously. Now, the Radiance was very mad, and for good reason. So what she started to do was she started appearing in the dreams of the Howlnest's citizens. This light manifested in an infection that spread throughout Howlnest. Bugs infected would fall into a deep sleep and awaken with broken minds. For many victims, they were reverted back to their basic instincts, carrying out the duties they once had in life, but now as mindless slaves. The infection was connected to the Radiance's hive, allowing her to control the bodies if needed. As the infection spread across Howlnest, many groups looked to solutions to fight off the Radiance's light. Like, the city gates were closed. The stag stations, which were a network of underground pathways for stags to follow, were also closed. With the 5 great knights unable to fight the infection, the Pale King decided to take matters into his own hands by using a substance known as void. The Pale King's palace was built in a place known as the Ancient Basin, but his castle wasn't the only noteworthy thing there. At the bottom of the Ancient Basin, there was an entrance to a pit known as the Abyss. Within the Abyss, there was a lake composed of void. Now, the Pale King realized this void could be given form. With this knowledge, the Pale King created a workshop in his palace where he put void in armored shell imbued with soul, creating servants that would serve him. We don't know when he did this or how he got them to serve him, but that's not the point. The point is that he turned to the void to create another creature. He thought he could use this creature to contain the Radiance and her infection. He tried to create a pure vessel. The Radiance's infection needs its host to have a will and a mind in order to enslave it. A pure vessel would be made specifically to lack these features. But his method for creating this so-called pure vessel was super cruel. This is where the White Lady comes in. These two higher beings engage in a union of some kind, resulting in the creation of several eggs which were dropped down into the abyss, where the void seeped into these eggs, corrupting their offspring. This act resulted in the creation of the vessels. Thousands of vessels were created in this process, but only one was chosen as the pure vessel, who was deemed the Hollow Knight, and was taken to the White Palace. The Pale King also sealed the door to the abyss, leaving the discarded vessels to rot away in darkness. Both the Pale King and the White Lady were ashamed of what they did, but they saw no other way to save the kingdom. With this plan underway, he raised the Hollow Knight to prime form, causing it to grow several times its original size. We don't know why he got bigger, but we do know that he was trained to use a nail. Why that was necessary, that is something I don't understand. However, the Hollow Knight was going to absorb the radiance, but the Pale King decided that would not be enough. He wanted to seal the Hollow Knight's physical body too. To get this done, he got help from 3 particular bugs, who would later be known as the 3 Dreamers. They were Lurin the Watcher, Monomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast. Lurin the Watcher lived in the Watcher Spire up in the city of Tyr. Monomon the Teacher lived in the Teacher's Archives on top of an acid lake in the Fog Canyon. Hera the Beast was a bit of a different story. She was the queen of Deepnest, which existed in Howlnest. Deepnest was kind of like a home to spiders and other similar bugs. To get her help, she wanted something. We really don't know why, but she wanted to have a kid with the Pale King. This kid would later turn out to be a girl named Hornet. Unlike the Pale King's other kids, Hornet was not hollowed out by the void. And so, the 3 Dreamers were put to rest to create a seal on the black egg, stopping people from entering. And each one had some sort of guard guarding their body. The only exception to that is Hera. So, Lurin the Watcher had the Watcher Knights, Monomon had a big jellyfish named Umu, and Hera, as like I said before, she didn't have a guard. The pure vessel was then somehow filled with the radiance, put into the black egg, chained up, and sealed off by the 3 Dreamers. Great job, Dad! And for a while, it worked. The infection was contained, and the bugs of Howlnest worshipped the pure vessel and the Dreamers by building statues for them. But then, after an unknown amount of time, the infection started to seep out of the Hollow Knight very slowly. Because, you see, the pure vessel was not actually pure. During his time at the White Palace, he grew a feeling of wanting to be hollow. With his dad, he wanted to impress his dad and be hollow so much that he got feelings for it, which made him not hollow. Yes, I know, it's a bit confusing, but long story short, he wasn't hollow, so the radiance was able to infect him. And at this time, hollowness was brought low, and the characters we see start to resemble how we see them right now in game. When it became obvious the Hollow Knight had failed, the Pale King resorted to Plan B. He hid himself in the dream world. At this point, all of the furniture in the White Palace was covered in white sheets, similar to how people in the real world cover their furniture while away on long trips. The palace was also completely covered in thorns and buzzsaws, similar to how people in the real world cover their houses with thorns and buzzsaws. After this, the kingdom fell to ruin, but I will not go into the details of that because it will be way too long. There does appear to have been another unforeseen event with the Pale King's plan. When the Hollow Knight was originally chosen, the door to the abyss was sealed, trapping the discarded vessels inside. But apparently, some of the vessels just didn't get the idea. So, because of this, vessel corpses can be found littered throughout the kingdom. There's one in the Ancient Basin, one in Greenpath, and even several trapped in Nosk's Lair and Deep Nest. Another vessel that escaped from the abyss is the player character, the Knight. The Knight, when he escaped the abyss, he kind of left Howl Nest to go somewhere else. We don't know where, though. We don't know exactly how they escaped either, but they did. And over time, many bugs traveled to Howl Nest. None of them are noteworthy enough to mention, so I won't. But there is one that is, and that is the arrival of the player character, who is commonly referred to as the Knight. The Knight is one of the lucky vessels that was able to make its way out of the abyss. Somehow, the Knight ended up venturing beyond Howl Nest and into the wilds beyond. It's implied that the Knight was called to Howl Nest by either the sealed Hollow Knight or the radiance within. Regardless of this, the Knight shows up and yeets itself off of this cliff, and the actual game of Howl Nest finally begins. In Hollow Knight, when you enter, you start in a city named Dirtmouth. It's more like a little town than a city, but that's not the point. The point is that you go from Dirtmouth into the underground tunnels, and you explore the underground. In the underground, you fight many bosses and get certain abilities. But all of these abilities are ultimately to try to be able to defeat the guardians of the Dreamers, to be able to get to the 3 Dreamers, which I mentioned earlier. You do this so that you can get into the Black Egg Temple. Now, there are 5 endings, but I will only go into 2 of them. Well, 3 of them, because 2 of them don't fit in the lure. So your goal in one of them is to try to beat the Hollow Knight and replace him as the new Hollow Knight, or you can get Hornet's help to hold him down as you dream nail him to be able to go into his dream and then fight the Radiant to try to end the infection once and for all. Now, doing this is the hard part. To do this, you have to fight many bosses and get the abilities, like I said before. Now, another thing, the 3rd ending that I'm going to go into, is the one where Hornet comes to help you defeat the Hollow Knight, but instead of dream nailing him, you just try to kill him. In that ending, Hornet is knocked down and is still in the Black Egg Temple when you replace the Hollow Knight. That means that she is trapped in the Black Egg Temple with you, which doesn't seem all that bad until you realize that she creates the seal on the door, making it so people can't get in or out. And because she's inside, no one can end the seal, and therefore people can't replace the Hollow Knight in the future if you fail. But that is it for today's video. I hope you all had fun watching or listening. Thank you so much for being here. Sir27 out. Peace. Hey guys, post-editing Sir27 here, and I just wanted to add this little bit of a section in just because I'm still having a clip at the end right now of me beating up